Yeah, Aquaman.
We got a Ben Shapiro burn. We did it. We did it.
In the wake of the catastrophic fires that absolutely destroyed the historic town of Lahaina on Maui, foreign investors, developers, and realtors are already capitalizing on this catastrophe through a targeted land grab. We'll be talking about this and how it relates to disaster capitalism today on The Left Wing. I'm Dr. Erica Okamoto, a host of the Cocktails and Capitalism podcast, and I'm joined by my co-host, John Cooper of Counterpoint Politics, as well as recurring guest, TJ Whitehead of Powers Taken, Not Given, and special guest, Leah, who goes by Socialist Sleuths on social media. Wildfires are still raging in parts of Lahaina and elsewhere on Maui. Less than half of the burn zone has been searched. 111 people are confirmed dead, and about 1,000 people are still missing. That the death toll is likely to balloon in the coming days as they continue to search the devastated areas. This is the deadliest fire that the country has seen in over 100 years. This is a quote from Police Chief John Pelletier, who says, "No one has ever seen this that is alive today. Not this size, not this number, not this volume." And we're not done. So they are going to uncover many, many more people who have been killed by this. 4,500 people may still be in need of shelter, and 86% of the nearly 3,000 structures burned were residential. It's estimated that rebuilding could cost $5.52 billion. And much of the disaster response has been conducted by locals who are running around sleepless, trying to provide mutual aid to their community members, while they're saying things like, "There's no one here to help. Where is Red Cross? Where are the other people showing up?" I mean, I think Red Cross did show up, but there has been a devastatingly low amount of disaster response. I wanted to touch on just kind of some of the causes. So the reason why we're seeing these devastating fires, in addition to climate change, in addition to the severe droughts as of late, the impacts of colonialism on the Hawaiian Islands are massive. Basically, after the coup to take over control of the islands, a few really, really wealthy missionary families ended up controlling all of the business, basically, the entire economy on the islands. I think it was 5 wealthy families, missionary families, that were running the sugar industry. And to do that, they completely remade the ecology of the islands. They basically went in and they brought foreign, invasive species, invasive grasses that are very, very, they're good for livestock to eat, but then they are like creating a tinderbox. And especially after they shut down these sugar plantations and they're not maintaining these lands, they're just become unruly, just ready for a massive disaster, a massive fire. Then you add tourism to the mix. You add like this completely different economic system where much of the resources of the island are going to the wealthy tourists who are coming in and then leaving. So, water being diverted from communities to golf courses and to, hotels. So you have this lack of water. There were people saying that they ran out of water while they were trying to, the firefighters ran out of water while they're trying to like hose down their own homes. They can't do anything at that point. They're just stuck there. Absolutely devastating. But I wanted to tie all this into disaster capitalism, a concept that was really coined by Naomi Klein in her book, The Shock Doctrine, The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. So she describes that as, let me find the quote here. She describes disaster capitalism as follows. "The way I define disaster capitalism is really straightforward. It describes the way that private industries spring up to directly profit from large-scale crises." That is what we are seeing on Maui. We are seeing like all of these foreign interests coming in and trying to scoop up the land that is being burned under people's feet, preying on these people who are in the worst disaster of their lives, many of whom have lost family members, are finding remains for people that they can't identify and sending in DNA samples. Meanwhile, there's tourist companies that are, taking people out snorkeling, and there are, just these companies continue to try to profit while this island is still on fire. It's absolutely insane. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about disaster capitalism and hear what your guys' reactions were to all of this.
Well,
I mean, I was also going to add.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the one other big polluter for Hawaii, specifically in terms of our colonialist history of being there, is the military.
The U.S. military. Yep.
Yep, the U.S. military is one of the biggest polluters in Hawaii, specifically with these massive fuel tanks that they bury deep underground that slowly seep into the waterways that also decrease the amount of viable drinking water specifically. And so it's just the abuse that has come from the United States as a nation that illegally commandeered this sovereign nation many years ago. It just hasn't stopped. And I definitely agree with Naomi Klein's assessment of disaster capitalism as a whole. We've seen it time and time again. We saw it with Hurricane Katrina, like she talks about in her book. We saw it with Iraq. We've seen it in so many places. And it will continue to happen because there is no better time for the capitalists to profit than when the people that you are trying to buy from are weak, and weak as in they have nothing else. They have nowhere else to turn, is basically what I'm saying. And specifically, we're seeing that with this land grab right now in Hawaii, where people they're so financially distraught given everything that they lost, that what's the alternative? What's the alternative than to sell their land for a lot of these people, because they just lost everything. And that's the best time for a capitalist to pounce, because that's when they're most vulnerable.
If there's any Always Sunny fans out there, of course they're going to do it because of the implications.
Because of the implication, yeah. Yeah, I saw the governor of Hawaii was attempting to instate a moratorium on capitalists trying to buy the devastated land.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I saw that right before we came on. And now I think the sentiment is good, because yes, you are exploiting people in their moment of need, and hey, they need money, and sure, it's a long term, it hurts them, but you can't worry about the long term if you're going to be dead. But I like the idea, but in the meantime, these people need to be taken care of, and I am not totally confident that they will be. So yeah. You have to do both. You can't choose one or the other. You have to take care of the people and make sure that they're not exploited by land developers. But it's half measures like we're used to. Who knows? Maybe the governor of Hawaii will pull a rabbit out of a hat and surprise me, and provide universal income for these people. But we'll see.
Did you see the Airbnb thing of I forgot their name, but they are Hawaiian and they've been speaking about this, and they were posting about how they're an activist in Hawaii. I should really look up who this is, but they were tweeting about how with so many Airbnbs in Hawaii and so many people that have been specifically in the more indigenous side of the communities, because like we said, they've been siphoning resources from these indigenous areas with local communities and taking it for the foreigners. So those are the communities that were hardest hit with the fires, given that that's where a lot of this was happening in terms of lack of resources, which is, common with capitalism, that the wealthy get a golden ladder off of the Titanic while the rest of us are gripping onto that raft, like at the end of the Titanic movie. But there was talk about seizing Airbnbs, specifically because, they have been taking from the local communities in terms of places that you can afford rent and turning them for profit. And so people were talking about maybe it's time that we just seize all the Airbnbs. And I love for one.
Airbnb seized.
Yeah. I don't know what y'all's thoughts are, but mine are yes.
I mean, I figured that you're all about seizing the means of production and everything. You got a little bit redder as you were talking just now,
The thing here is, like, Leah, you mentioned earlier, positive and negative externalities. there are positive externalities of capitalism. There are, one of them being that the rich get richer, and that's positive for the rich. But one of the negative externalities is climate change, as you mentioned, that, 100 companies account for 71% of all global emissions, right? And, obviously these people aren't necessarily communicating in like this evil cabal. It's just by the economic incentives that we give them, we incentivize them to make as much profit as possible. But we don't have them pay the cost, the negative externalities of creating that profit. And Erica, you mentioned, what was it, $7 billion, billions and billions of dollars to repair the damages from this fire.
0.52.
And are the people who created the negative externalities that cause these fires, are they going to be paying that money? No, the taxpayer is. We are all paying the cost of that, but only a small group of people are getting the profits. And then what happens? As you mentioned, there's climate capitalism. It devastates the area. People are forced to sell their land because they need the money. And who are they selling it to? They're selling it to the rich people who are disproportionately affecting climate change. And it's such fucking bullshit. I often talk about if these are like two kindergartners in a fight, you'd be like, yeah, no, it's fucking bullshit that the one kindergartner is causing the class to not have recess. And then, I don't know, the one kid has to sell his fucking homework slip to the kid who caused the class not to have recess because they needed it because they were relying on recess for money. I don't know. This analogy didn't work out too well, but I tried it. And that's the point. But the point here is
that's the thing is.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think is kind of a thing that I think is so difficult for leftists. And I wonder if you guys are the same, specifically when it comes to climate change. If I see this and I'm just like, how do you not see it for what it is, being that this system makes the rich richer and the poor poorer with how it's been going for the past 100 years. And I think that the thing that terrifies me is, for a while growing up, I don't know if you guys experienced this too, of like the early 2000s where they're like, all the polar bears are going to die. You're never going to see a polar bear ever again. And they like really hammered that home with the polar bears. But all of us kind of, at least for me, I was like, that's sad. And I really love the polar bears. But at the same time, like, that's not my everyday, that's not my day to day. So it was easier for people to, I think, distance themselves from the idea of climate change, specifically in Western wealthy nations where they weren't necessarily seeing the effects yet, even though we knew that it was coming. But now we're seeing the effects here. We saw it with California back in 2 years ago when the sky was orange. We saw it with New York that the sky was orange recently. We now have Maui that's on fire. People had to flee from Greece during their vacation. We're seeing it all around with these fires, and people are still denying that climate change is even real. People are still saying that it is the cabal, the far right talking point, that the cabal wants you to believe in climate change. And I'm like, I just don't understand how they can't see it. That why would someone try to convince me that climate change is something that's real to make them more profit, when the thing that is making them the most profit is the status quo? That is what they want to keep. What they want to maintain, the system that they want to maintain the system that got us billionaires to begin with. And that wasn't a system that they're trying to create. We already have it. We have billionaires. The planet's on fire. I don't know what else to tell you.
I think that it's essentially the people who say this, because one of the more infuriating things about this incident is the conspiracy theories about it. And I cannot stand conspiracy theories. I mean, some conspiracy theories are real, but but the wild ones,
the trees didn't burn.
Trees didn't burn. Did you see that? Not every tree was burned to the ground. That was filled with 40 gallons of water. And look at this. Some houses didn't burn down. It thinks we're thinking something's going on here. And it's all it is people who don't want to acknowledge climate change. That's all it is. It's like they have no interest in it, and they either don't believe it's real or don't care that it's real. So they got to point to the fact that they are doing some damage to us. Oh, and so what's your solution to do something about they? But fucking nothing. So that's it. I don't
actually
take them
give
seriously.
them more power.
Yeah, that's it. They are our betters. They don't know what to do.
I don't trust them. Give them all the power.
Yeah, I hate it. Yeah. I mean, what you said, Leah, about you know, it's reaching different places now. Even these like exotic destinations that wealthy people spend all their money to go and, you know, vacation there. It makes me think like, you know, climate change, it's not just going to come, it's going to affect the poor first. It's going to affect the global south first. Absolutely. But it is not going to discriminate, really. Like at a certain point, if you buy your fucking vacation home in Maui, it's going to burn with the rest of the homes there. You know, you can't escape it,
California,
even with your money.
like
in Florida, they won't insure homes. Like literally, insurance companies like, we're not going to insure. Like they're skyrocketing insurance price for homes because they know what's going to happen with climate change.
John, you can sell your house to the fish.
You can
stop complaining.
We got a Ben Shapiro burn. We did it. We did it.
Getting one in per segment.
What we need to do more nuclear tests to create some sentient fish species that we can sell our homes to. That's clearly.
As long as they're gay, I'm for it.
No, that's the frogs.
Damn it.
I keep meaning to do videos about this, but I'm the people who are pushing conspiracies and saying that this is big green that is trying to say that this is climate change, that it makes me more infuriated than pretty much anything else, because it's like, you not only are you like a useful fool for the fossil fuel industry, but like you've swallowed every single line that they have put out, knowingly deceiving the public. The fossil fuel industry knew that they were deceiving the public, and you swallowed it all up, and you're regurgitating all of that nonsense because you're a fucking fool to these corporate interests. Like, when are you going to wake up and realize that that's the role that you're playing in society, to just mimic and parrot fucking corporate talking points? Do you really want to be that person? Fuck you.
I always liked that people say that, listen, the whole climate change thing is nonsense. It's just backed by these greedy scientists that are, you know, getting paid for this. You know, they're really going after those $50,000 grants. You know, Exxon and their billions of dollars, they're all in the up and up. It's perfectly fine. I'm sure they're being honest, but we can't trust those scientists. Like, it's that's what's like, these people aren't genuine. They really don't believe what they say. I don't believe it for a second.
Yeah.
And this has been a pretty negative conversation. Obviously, it's a disaster. It's an existential crisis with climate change. But our next segment that we will be discussing, which will pop on YouTube probably after this one, is going to talk about a very positive thing in regards to climate change. So if you are interested in a little, happiness to go after this,
palate cleanser here.
A palate cleanser. Definitely stay tuned on the channel, and that'll be coming out, probably tomorrow. All right.
And just right before I let you folks go, I just wanted to add that there has been a class action lawsuit filed, two class action lawsuits filed over the weekend, alleging that the wildfires were caused by Hawaiian Electric's energized power lines that were knocked down by strong winds. And the company chose not to de-energize the power lines after they knew some of the poles and lines had fallen and were in contact with the vegetation on the ground. So, like PG&E, the lawsuits against them, hopefully we will be seeing more accountability for the companies that are, using these horrible practices and putting people's lives in danger, killing people.